In this episode, once again, we speak to the amazing Steve Kidd. Steve is an international best-selling author of over 20 books. He has marketing genius. He's got marketing experience of over 35 years. And today, Steve tells us why becoming an international best-selling author is the beginning of your marketing. Let's find out why. Welcome. This is Gull, your money mindset expert. And once again, we have the amazing, we have the wonder, we have the charming Stephen Kidd. Welcome, Steve.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for coming on Friday Feature. We had such a wonderful conversation. We had to have you back on Money Talkies. Steve, everyone's heard how amazing you are, but please, in your own words, tell everybody what it is that you do.
So, I am a third generation minister, an international best-selling author of multiple books myself, but I have the privilege of getting to work with people all the way from concept through publishing for the writing, the marketing, the publishing of their book to bestseller and beyond.
Wonderful. And that explains why today's topic is how becoming a best-selling author is the start of your marketing. So we touched upon this topic a little bit on Friday Feature, but I want us to talk about this again before we go ahead into marketing. Why is becoming a best-selling author so important, and how can it possibly help your marketing?
Well, number one and most important, you will never maximize anything that you're marketing, product, service, or yourself, if you do not have the title best-selling author along with it or bestseller along with it. You will just never reach the maximum. And it's because of how powerful the phrase bestseller is. I'll give you a statistic because I know we love statistics. Over 50% of all movies in the world that get made are based off of best-selling books, and over 80% of them that win any kind of awards are based off of bestsellers. That immediately just gives credibility to what you're going to be doing. And that's the foundation we need to lay to be able to really do that thing we need to do in the world.
Wonderful. And I totally agree. I think being a bestseller it gives you such a not just a feather in your cap, but it does allow you to build that authority that you are someone who knows what they're talking about. You become a subject matter expert overnight, pretty much. And you may have been there, as we were discussing on Friday Feature, you may be a doctor in the field for a number of years, but becoming a bestseller just instantly gives you the authority which you didn't otherwise have, even though you've been authority in the field before that. So I do agree with that. But today's topic is a bit interesting because you say, unlike the normal perception is that if you become best-selling author, you've nailed the marketing and the clients are going to be knocking down your doors trying to come and work with you. You are saying becoming a bestseller is the start of your marketing. Do you want to talk us through why you say that, Steve?
Becoming a bestseller is like building a foundation to a house.
Okay.
Foundations are absolutely mandatory to have a good solid House. But if that's where you stop, you're not going to have a very livable house. We talked about this before, the concept of graduating from medical school, or like you did, graduating with your law, your doctorate. Those are credentials. When you walk across the stage and you become a medical doctor, you are now and forever Dr. So-and-so when you get your doctorate. That doesn't necessarily mean you can do any of those things. It means that you have the knowledge of how to do those things. The same thing is true with why we start from the word bestseller. Our book doesn't have any credibility until somebody else says that it has credibility. And I hate to say it that way, but it's really just true. Third-party validation is always what gives another person looking at it the reason to believe that something's worth it. And there's nothing more powerful. The number one influencer credential is bestseller. And because we can do that literally on day one, why would we spend a year and then begin marketing the book when we could actually do that and then build all of our marketing right to begin with?
So you start and you become, and you're right. When I remember when we really started my book, it became an international bestseller within 24 hours. It was number one on in US in Amazon.com. Funny enough, we only got to this number 2 spot in UK, but where we actually launched it from in the UK. But internationally we became number one, and we stayed there for quite some time. And it doesn't take that long. I mean, if you know what you're doing, but the quality of the book has to be good. So I haven't done any marketing behind it, but we still get every month sales for it because the content is appreciated by people. So, you know, there's lots of reviews behind it, and there's lots of positive reviews, thank God. And so, you know, and so we have continuous sales. I probably can use it a lot better than I am at the moment for marketing, but the point is it has to have good high quality content for it to you know, be sustainable. So once you have the bestseller, what's the next step for marketing then? What do you do next?
Well, and hopefully you planned this before you did the next step, but even if you didn't, that's okay. You know, the next step is understanding, why did you get that credential? What's it for? You know, the perfect example again is going back to becoming a medical doctor, getting your doctorate. In fact, we could even say doctorate in general for whatever field it is. Why did you become Dr. So-and-so versus just, you know, a guy that has a bachelor's degree in that? What's the purpose of it? Are you going to be speaking from stage? Are you going to be selling courses? Did you write a book that you really just want to blow this book up and have it be everywhere, on every shelf, everywhere, or other things like that? And so it's understanding, what should the book be leading to? Because most cases, even though I said, you know, blowing the book up, in most cases, the book isn't going to be where you're going to make the money. It's going to be the door that the book opens up. So again, if you have a course, I used this one last time we talked about, you know, if you have a course that's based off of the best-selling book, you know, movies, if the movie is based off of the best-selling book, Harry Potter, everybody's heard about that one, right? It builds the foundation in the trailer for that movie. This has got to be a great book, because I mean, this has got to be a great movie because it's based off of the best-selling book. And then we lead to, and that is the lead in then to, in that case, the movie. It's the lead into that course. It's the lead into, I'd like to introduce to you the international, let me say this right, the #1 international best-selling author, Gull. See how much more powerful that is for the marketing of you and the bringing you up onto stage than just, oh, hey guys, here's Gull.
Yeah, I agree. I think you hit the nail on the head. I think far too many people think they're going to write a book and they're going to become millionaires. Book itself is not where you make the money. I mean, yes, of course, there are some writers like, you know, J.K. Rowling. That's a different category. Excuse me. The vast majority of the people who write the book and become best-selling authors, they're not necessarily going to be writing those books to make money, especially if it's nonfiction. It's generally a way to showcase their expertise. So the book is a marketing tool leading on to do something else. But far too many people skip that point. I think, you know, they think, well, I've become a best-selling author. That's it. Now she have, you know, royalties coming through. Not necessarily. That's just peanuts. And I do believe that you need to use a book in a way that showcases your expertise, but then you do have to sell something on the back of it, be it online program, be it your mastermind, be it your, you know, your speaking engagements, whatever have you. But you need to have an end in mind before you even, you know, release that so-called book. No?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, your book done right, at the end of the book, and this is a marketing tip in general.
Yeah.
The end of any marketing piece is an invitation to the next thing.
Yes, always.
And so you want to know already, what is the next thing I'm going to invite them to, so that at the end of the book, we can invite them. And that can be as simple as join my email list, to as advanced as, you know, I've got $100,000 program that I want to sell you. You know, it depends on the reader for that particular book, but you want to have that in mind, and you want that to be where the book ends with the people, is the invitation to, let's take the next step on our journey.
Definitely. I think, and how can we actually, how can, you know, so let's talk about this. Once the book has hit the bestseller, how can we start using it as a marketing tool to, you know, because a bestseller doesn't last for that long. So you don't remain #1 forever. It's for a short period of time, unless you're piling money into the book as well. It generally, because every day we have new books coming out, you're competing with new books and so forth, and new sales. So it's difficult to remain #1 or even the top 5 sellers, or, you know, 10, whatever. How do we use our book from then onwards when you're no longer on #1 on Amazon?
So the number one piece of that is acknowledging that. And that's
Okay.
the part that most everybody misses. Okay. So when you walk into your doctor's office, and the doctor comes in, um, they introduce them as Dr. So-and-so. You know, his name may be Jim, but the nurse doesn't say, and then Jim will be in here in a minute. No, the nurse is going to say, Dr. Smith will be in. Okay. And that's a lot of times the biggest piece we miss. We become a best-selling author, a number one international best-selling author, and then we don't use the title that we earned, you know? And in whatever we're doing, even if the bestseller had nothing to do with what we're doing, you still have that. You know, I mean, technically, you know, you've got the degrees that you got when you became a lawyer, and you still have all of those degrees.
Yes.
You know, and you are that person. And especially when you're talking about something that's powerful of languaging. One of my authors, his book came out, it's called 365 Hip Hop. It came out January 1st, 2016. I haven't checked it this week, but every time I look at it, it's in the top 10. It was number one for forever. And that's all has to do with how he marketed specifically the book. But the important part of it is we did make him a bestseller internationally. Prior to that, he was offering to speak for free at the groups that he spoke to, and he couldn't even get people to return his calls. I saw him a couple months later, it was about 3 months later, and he was booked out 6 months in advance at $2,000 per each one of those gigs. And I asked him, well, what's the difference? He goes, well, it really boils down to this. I'm no longer Carl Michelle. I am number one international best-selling author, Carl Michelle. Owning that tag, owning what you've earned, that's, you know, that's the very first thing you have to do. And then, you know, like we talked about with the course or even your free giveaway. I mean, the sign up for my newsletter and get my free 5 tips, or sign up for my newsletter and get my free number one international best-selling book on, could be the same 5 tips, but I want to sign up for it goes through the roof because we're owning and using the credential that we got.
I mean, when I'm listening to you, what I'm finding, and I'm because I'm tuning into my own marketing, you can see international number one best-selling author on my Instagram and on my website, but it's not pushed as much. It's not owned as much. Yeah, I know, it's fine. And it's, you know, it's not who really I am, you know. And I think owning what you just said hit me hard, because I haven't owned that title, number one best-selling author. That's who I am. It doesn't matter if it was for a short period of time, if it was 2 days, 3 days, 10 days, doesn't really matter. I was and I am number one best-selling author, but I haven't owned it because I'm no longer best-selling at the moment. It's not top 10 or top 1. I've ignored it and put it into the background. So it's interesting that, you know, you have to own your title. When I think of myself, because I spent more time in being a lawyer comes to my mind first than best-selling author, even though my more recent achievement is number one best-selling author. Isn't that funny? Isn't that funny? It's about self-promotion without arrogance, but it is a point to celebrate your achievements. I wonder how many people are playing small and have fear of owning up, because I think there's a lot of imposter syndrome can come up as well, and you would be aware of this, especially in marketing, because in marketing is all about, you know, pushing people up and showcasing their expertise and highlighting their achievements. How often do you find people, you know, playing small and think, yeah, that was okay, but that was last year, not anymore? How do you overcome that? How do you help people to step into their power and say, you know, doesn't matter if it was 10 years ago or 2 years ago or 2 days ago, you are an international best-selling author. Let's use that title. Let's go out and own it, and let's, you know, bring some clients in. That's a question that comes to my mind, because it seems very relevant to me at the moment.
So this is our vocabulary lesson part of the segment. There is a word that is perhaps one of the most misused words in any language, and it's the word humility.
Right.
See, we think of being humble as some kind of being self-deprecating, diminishing ourselves so that we don't seem like we're an arrogant jerk. Actually, conceit and diminishing, any type of diminishing yourself, those are opposite sides of the same coin. Humility is not the opposite of conceit. Humility is having a right perspective of yourself. It is embracing and being able to say matter of factly, but as well as boldly, who you are and what you do, knowing that, yes, we do have our failures and being willing to acknowledge and accept them. But just as importantly, saying, acknowledging, owning, and claiming the things that you're good at, rather than being like, well, so somebody gives you a compliment and you're like, yeah, that wasn't that, or, oh, well, thanks. You don't really accept it in, versus saying, yeah, when I do this thing, you're a podcaster, so you'll love this one. Every once in a while, when I'm putting together my podcast, and I'm doing the editing, I will do it really well. And I'm like, I'm so good at this. I should have this as a job. I will say something encouraging about myself, and I laugh at myself because it's, kind of my own personal joke. But we really do need to do. If you don't celebrate you, nobody else is going to. And if you don't, when you start your company, bringing this all back around to business, okay? If you don't, when you start your company, if you don't set as the culture of your company celebrating you, the solopreneur, you will begin to fail to do it when you have 2 employees or 2,000 employees.
Okay, that's powerful. I think understanding, and I'm reading a podcast on this, understanding your gifts and your talents and abilities, and celebrating your achievements along the way, and not focusing on your shortcomings, but actually focusing more on your talents and abilities. I think this plays hand in hand with that particular episode where you just said. So let's move on to this now. So assuming someone has a best-selling book now, how do they go about marketing? How can they use a best-selling book to gain, like your client did, to gain clients, booking out gigs and so forth? What would be the process?
So, and it really goes back to what we were saying before. It's about claiming it. When you are going to be on Gull's podcast, you don't want to just tell Gull, hey, I wrote a book, or, hey, I'd like to talk about how to make money in the marketplace. You want to tell her, I'm the best-selling author of the book on blah, blah, blah. I can tell you as a podcaster, that jumps off the page, as well as it makes it so much easier for us to promote you because you have something that's special and unique and different. The same would be true if you want to be a speaker. You want to empower the people that are going to do the marketing for that event by being able to say, and, among the speakers we have in this event is the best-selling author, blah, 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 and all of those kind of things down the road. As simple as your free giveaway should be the element of, this isn't just a thing, this is based off of the bestseller. And maybe it isn't your whole book, maybe it's just the intro to your book, or those kind of things. There's different nuances in that. And of course, obviously your course, which, your courses or your masterminds or your personal coaching, whichever level of that, all of those should be, that languaging of, this is something that is important. This is a best-selling book. This is a best-selling topic. And that's why you want to get into it, not just because I'm great and amazing, and after all, you should just buy my course, but it has validity.
I think that's so powerful. I think it boils down to the end. You need to have the end in mind first. Correct me if I'm wrong, from what I'm understanding. So even before you write your book, you need to understand, what is the purpose of this book. So is it to get more speaking engagements? Is it to get more people into your online course or your masterminds? Is it to, what's the purpose behind it? Or is it to actually have like a gazillion books in a gazillion bookstores? You want to have, become widely known and tell 50,000, 100,000 copies across the world, or whatever have you. It's to have the end goal in mind. And then step 2 is actually, once you've written the book and you become bestseller, is then next to follow the steps through and use that book in that sort of marketing process, and allowing people to see your book, to read through your book, and be proud of it. I think that's another thing. I think a lot of people are hesitant to showcase their books. I remember when I wrote my book, and I'm a very confident speaker, and I've got my own podcast, and I'm very articulate, and my legal training helps, I suppose, as well with that. But because I'm dyslexic, I had a lot of hesitation. And I remember I've never been so stressed as I was when I was about to release my book. And I was like, I don't know, it felt like I was back in school, when you showcase your assignments to your teachers, and you're looking for, wonder what the feedback's going to be and how they're going to tell you off and whatever else. I really felt like that. I've never been so stressed as I was when I wrote the book. And maybe that's the reason why I'm in I've got 4 ideas in my head for books 2 and 3 and 4, actually. They haven't been birthed, because that was a very traumatic time for me. I found it very, very stressful. And, allowing people to read their book and the vulnerable sides of you. But I think you need to understand what message you're trying to get across, and then have thick skin, I suppose, because you are going to get people who are going to come back and say very negative things about you or your book. Or, I mean, I was very lucky I didn't get too much of that, but still, there will be people who you will trigger them, and they will say negative things about you, not necessarily truthful words, but just because you've triggered them, they will have a go at you and lash out at you. So that makes sense. So you need to, if you see a book as a marketing tool, then you need to have a plan, not just go and write a book. That's what I'm understanding. Am I correct?
Yes. In fact, if you don't mind, I'm going to expand on that a little bit.
Yes, please do.
So first and foremost, you need to know, who am I writing to? What's it for? And you really need to clearly identify that. If you can get your book down to the point where you're having a one-on-one conversation with a person, that's going to be the most powerful. Then number 2 is, what's their greatest need? And then number 3 is, from that, knowing yourself well enough to be able to say, from whom I'm writing to and what their greatest need is, this is what I do that can really help them just take a step. And that's the next piece of it, especially when we're talking a book, is we try to give everybody everything. We try to dump the entire world of our entire knowledge on them in one book. And really, it's better to take a point, make it really clear, let them make one little step, and then lead them to the next step versus giving them, here's 20 things to do. And we all end up reading through the book, intending to go back and start back at number 1. And then we don't. And then we wonder why number 20 doesn't work. We really want to just have number 1 be what it is so that they can take that step. And that's kind of, added on to what you said, which was very accurate.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And I think we, throughout this, the series, we've recorded a number of business coaches talking about speaking to your ideal avatar. I think the book is no different either. You can't write a book for everybody. You have a specific message for a specific audience. And that's who you should be talking to. This idea that, like Harry Potter's for everybody and whatever else. I think Harry Potter just appeals to a lot of people. It's written for a demographic, which is kids, and it ends up expanding to teenagers. But it had such a story and such a storyline with so many layers on it, some nuances on it, that it appeals to a greater audience. But it still does have a target audience. And therefore, when you write your book, you need to understand you've got a message. Who are you speaking to? I think that's a key thing that a lot of people do miss. And I don't think I'm just thinking about it. Did I do that when I was writing my book? But then again, I suppose I did that subconsciously, because I've been working as a coach for the longest time, so I know the kind of audience I talk to. So I probably did this subconsciously. I already know what kind of language I use and how I'm speaking to. So I did it in a similar way. But if I was at the beginning of my marketing, if I'm transitioning into becoming a coach, if I'm going into this field and I don't know who my target audience is, I don't know who my client avatar is, then you need to spend some time thinking about who should you be writing to, because I think that's very important. Otherwise, if you're speaking to everybody, you're going to be speaking to nobody. No?
Exactly. Yes, absolutely. And I'll give you a real easy cheat if you're brand new and you don't know who your avatar is. All of us, I failed to have met anybody yet that doesn't fall into this. All of us begin giving people what we wish we would have known before. So our avatar is the younger version of ourselves, somebody that we know absolutely intimately because we know what they were going through and we know what they needed and what they didn't have. And we just really wish we would have had it then. And so now we're going to go back and give that to somebody else. So that's a good, perfect starting avatar. I mean, it likely is going to morph after that, but that's a great place to start.
I love that. I love that. I think I always say this, when I first started out, I was speaking to the 1.0 version of me. So the 2.0 version of me was talking to the 1.0 version of me. And that's how I attracted clients, because that's how I knew I could help them, because I wish I don't know these things that I was now helping other people with. So I think that's a brilliant place to start. So wrapping this up now, what are your key tips of one, becoming a best-selling author, and then using that to further your marketing and bringing more clients?
Well, of course, the number one key tip is you're never going to maximize your potential for the marketing of anything, product, good, service, any of that, if bestseller isn't in the mix there.
Okay.
Done by a best-selling author, based off of a bestseller, one of those kind of things. That's number one. Number two is really going back to that concept of being intentional versus putting the book out, or anything that we market and then trying to figure it out as we go. As you've said several times, begin with the end in mind. Where do I want to get to? And then lead people there. And number three, of all the other things I could say, number three is really about being in service. It's about understanding that, well, first of all, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. But that thing that is uniquely, wonderfully incredible that is you is only as good as you're giving it away and helping somebody else. And a lot of times we miss that, because we're trying to think of, well, how can I make money and what can I do, and the pressure of bills and all that is very, very real. But it's really about putting ourselves in that place where, how can I do the most good in the world? What can I do to serve that one person? And that's, if I'm going to have like a 3.5, if you will, it's taking the millions of people you could help and just really breaking it down for you simply to, how can I help somebody, one single person, versus trying to worry about the whole world. If you helped one person, that would be more than enough.
I love that. Absolutely love that. I always think if you can help change one life and transform one life, that's more than enough. That's that you've done your life's work. And of course, if you come with that sort of mindset, you'll help numerous people. But at least then you're speaking to one specific demographic, one specific type of person, and then you're actually in service. And I think let's reinforce the idea. Whenever you're writing a book, or even when you're doing marketing, whatever, if you're coming from the angle of how can I make money from this and how can I prosper from this, that's probably the wrong way to enter the business space. I think, as much as I am a money mindset person, I talk about money all the time, I do believe in service first. So if you come from the angle of how can I serve people, who can I help, I promise you'll sell a lot more books and courses, and you'll make a hell of a lot more money compared to the angle of how can I make money from this. So I do love that. Wonderful. Well, so thank you so much for joining us, Steve. Tell us, Steve, how can we connect with you? Where can you find you on the internet?
Well, I have a wonderful free gift for everybody. And because we've been talking about money, I love the title of it. It's ongoingwealthguide.com. That's ongoingwealthguide.com. And in there, we're going to talk you through the 5 basic steps of how to be able to create and maintain ongoing wealth in your life, meaning abundance. Meaning that it's not about the dollars and cents that are in your bank account today. It's about the capability to be able to continue generating that. I'd like to even give you a visual imagery of that. Think of a pipe with water flowing through it. The pipe needs to be clear on the back side so that the water comes out, needs to be clear on the front side so the water comes in, but it also has to be clear in the middle. We need to allow money to flow through us. And that's how we can then grow and become bigger and bigger and bigger. What I like to refer to as a wide conduit, to be able to allow money to just be through us constantly and doing better and greater good in the world. So ongoingwealthguide.com will help you on the road down to that. And I look forward to helping you any other way I can.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So if you're listening to us on the podcast, then the link and the links to Steve's website will be in the show notes. And if you're watching us on YouTube, then down below, in the description section. Once again, we'll have the links that Steve just mentioned for the free gift, as well as his website. Do check him out. I think it's a fantastic strategy, and I think it's something that you definitely do need to have in your arsenal. But I do believe that you do need support, because writing a book just just for the sake of writing a book is not going to get you far in your marketing. If you're writing a non-fiction, then you need to have an end in mind, and an expert can sometimes help and guide you and show you what you need, what message it needs to come through, so you can connect with your ideal soul clients. Well, on that note, thank you so much, Steve, for being such an amazing guest. It's been a pleasure having you today.
Thanks so much for having me, Gull.
And thank you for listening to me and Steve today on Money Talkies. I will be back with another amazing guest, finding out how you and I can build a better business. Until the next time we meet, this is Gull Khan signing off. Take care and bye for now.